Look, Sam Blitz is with us. Sam, very good morning to you. Arsenal, let's get into this. Have a midfield striker dilemma. It's not really a question of who, but more where those pieces fit in, isn't it?
Well, Arsenal come into the semi-final off the back of that great result at Real Madrid, home and away. But the one sort of negative note was that Thomas Partey suspension, which has resulted in Arsenal having to shuffle their team a little bit. As a result of that suspension, Declan Rice is expected to play the deeper role, with Jorginho also out injured. And then for the rest of the team, there's only two real question marks. Now, the two players who are likely to start this semi-final tonight are Mikel Merino and Leandro Trossard. However, the dilemma is, where do they play? Merino has been playing up front for the last few weeks, but he's also naturally a midfielder. But Leandro Trossard's in such great form at the moment. He's started the last 4 Premier League games as a centre forward. So, yeah, it's a little bit of thinking for Mikel Arteta to do. But, yeah, this is the team we're expecting to see for Arsenal tonight.
So, which one does he go for? Who plays up front?
Well, Leandro Trossard is perhaps maybe the slight favourite. He's got 4 goals in his last 4 Premier League games. What we've done here is we've worked out the best XG overperforming players since the start of the month, and actually what the data has shown us is that Leandro Trossard should have scored 1.75 has scored 1.75 more goals than he should have done, which is better than any other Premier League player. Now, obviously, a lot of people would expect him to start in the centre forward role, considering he's in great form. However, when you look at the game against PSG in October, in the league phase, you can see a little bit of a clue as to maybe what Mikel Arteta will do. Trossard started as sort of like up front in a 4-4-2 formation, but as you can see from his pass map, the positions he actually took up was very much as a midfielder. So maybe that's an option for Mikel Arteta tonight, to maybe start with Trossard as the centre forward, but then also move him slightly further back into midfield. That would then allow Mikel Merino to keep that centre forward role alongside Bukayo Saka and Gabriel Martinelli. So it worked for Arsenal in October. They won 2-0 in that league phase game. So you wonder if Mikel Arteta will produce a repeat tactic.
Okay, so what's the argument for keeping Merino where he is?
Well, so quite simply, form as a centre forward as well. Because since February the 15th, that was that famous day at Leicester when Mikel Merino came off the bench as a centre forward and then scored twice. Actually, Mikel Merino has more goals and assists, or actually has the joint most goals and assists than any Premier League player since that time. Exactly the same number of goals and assists during that period than Mohamed Salah. So yeah, Mikel Merino is you don't want to move him back into midfield after that. So yeah, that's probably the main justification for keeping Merino where he is, especially because he's playing so well.
Okay, Thomas Partey, as you said, Jorginho, as you said, both out, and you alluded to a change in position for Declan Rice. So what do the stats say?
Yeah, so Declan Rice is going to be moving from a number 8 position in towards a number 6 position. That's the defensive midfield role that Thomas Partey normally has. And actually, you can see from the numbers that Declan Rice has actually played only 7 matches this season in the Premier League and Champions League in that defensive midfield role. And actually what you get is you do lose these goals and assists from open play when Rice plays there. He still gets a few shots off, but again, it's not as many as when he's playing in that number 8 attacking midfield role. And yeah, only one big chance created playing as a defensive midfielder, and that was the free kick that Mikel Merino scored against Liverpool. That was also in October. So, you know, Declan Rice is going to be a key player for tonight, mainly because of set pieces as well, because he takes corners, and obviously we know his free kick taking ability, but perhaps his best position, his fixed position now, is that number 8, 32 matches this season for Arsenal. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a different role for him tonight. And of course, he got man of the match in both legs against Real Madrid. So we might see a different Declan Rice tonight.
Yeah, I mean, different, maybe not worse. It just shows his tactical discipline, maybe. All right, another key factor tonight is going to be set pieces. Quite a contrast in 2 performances from these sides this season. Yeah,
we know about Arsenal's threat from set pieces. The joint second most goals from dead ball situations than any team in Europe's top 5 leagues. And listen, we all know this. Arsenal's set piece threat has been known for some time. However, when it comes to PSG, the number of set-piece goals they've conceded is actually quite alarming for them. They've conceded 15 goals from set pieces, which is the 12th most out of any team in Europe's top 5 leagues. Now, this isn't encouraging as well. They're alongside teams in the relegation zone like Ipswich Town, Southampton, Man United, Wolves. They're sort of in the lower echelons of the Premier League. So that's what PSG's set-piece threat is like. But their woes in terms of the league is also pretty concerning, because they've conceded 10 goals from open play in the league. That is the 6th worst out of any team in the French top flight. But actually, when you look at the percentage of goals they've conceded from set play, it is the worst, categorically stand out the worst. So that sort of goes to show that PSG don't get many set pieces. Of course they are, they're dominant in the French top flight, but when they do have to defend those set pieces, they do concede them nearly a third of the time. So they also have the 4th best record in terms of conceding chances from set plays, but again that comes down to the fact they don't get many, they don't have to defend many corners, and then again when the XG conceded from set plays, the majority of their chance, or 21% of their chances, a decent chunk of them come from defending set pieces. So yeah, it's a worrying sign for Luis Enrique tonight. Yeah,
in the context of that, they romped the league, and yet those stats are coming up. Okay, we've already spoken about Mikel Merino, but set pieces where he could play a key role, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. This was one of the set piece goals he scored this season, actually one of 3 he's managed. This was against Chelsea. He also got one at the Emirates home to Liverpool, which we've already discussed. So he does turn up in the big games in terms of set pieces. Actually, in terms of the Premier League, he's one of the big set piece threats. 3rd highest for the XG from set pieces. Particular focus on corners. Only Gabriel has a better record from corners in terms of XG. And then, he's very good at sort of using his head well, and and those goals from headers do come from set plays as well. So really interesting numbers in terms of Mikel Merino's sort of form. And when you actually, but it's not just him as well, because when you look at the top 5 in terms of Premier League threat from set pieces, you can see there are 3 Arsenal players there. Gabriel, of course, injured, out for the season, won't be playing tonight, so that's a blow, especially given PSG's weaknesses from set pieces. But William Saliba as well will also be looking to be a threat in the penalty box from these dead ball situations. And also Ollie Watkins in that list as well. Remember, Arsenal bid for him in January, so that sort of makes a little bit more sense as well.
I see. It's all making sense. In terms of PSG's threat, their direct style very impressive. They have a lot of dribblers in their team. They take players on twice as much as Arsenal do, and they're set to break records, aren't they?
Yeah, as you can see, PSG's big threat is their dribblers. That their front 3 we've spoken about: Desiree Doué, Kavisha Kvaratskhelia, Bradley Barcola, players like Ousmane Dembele. Really good in the 2 legs against Aston Villa. As you can see, actually, with the amount of dribblers they have, they've got twice as many as Arsenal, which is quite surprising from an Arsenal perspective, because you look at Bukayo Saka, Gabriel Martinelli, their one-on-one abilities is a really key feature of their team, but PSG do this better than anyone else. And in terms of records, they're actually going to go on and break a Champions League record for the most dribbles in a Champions League campaign. And it's interesting who they are alongside in this list, because you have the Pep Guardiola's Barcelona, who went on to win the Champions League in 2011. You've also got the 2015 Barcelona winning team that went on to win the treble. And they were managed by, of course, Luis Enrique, who is the PSG manager nowadays. So PSG's key threat is their dribbling ability, and they're almost playing like a team that goes on to win the Champions League.
That's not a good sign.
That's not a good sign at all.
No. Huge focus on their front 3. Their fullbacks aren't too shabby either, are they? They both got goals at Aston Villa in the last Champions League game. And how they commit their forwards is going to be a key factor as well, isn't it?
Yeah, Achraf Hakimi and Nuno Mendes are the 2 key threats from the fullback positions. You can see from Hakimi's pass map, he does take very high positions up the top end of the pitch, and it's going to be a real test for Miles Lewis-Skelly, who actually has only been dribbled past once in the Premier League and Champions League this season. So that's going to be a big test for him. You see where Hakimi goes; he's almost right alongside the right winger in terms of getting the ball and then moving it on. Nuno Mendes is the other one, and yeah, his battle with Bukayo Saka is going to be really, really key. You can see Mendes gets up and down, and how Saka deals with that, how he tracks back, how he sort of stays high up the pitch to provide an option on the counter-attack. That's going to be really important as well. So yeah, as we said, there's a lot of talk about Desiree Doué, Ousmane Dembélé, Kavisha Kvaratskhelia, but actually PSG are a lot more than just a really talented front three. They've actually got full-backs that really like to commit to the attack. So yeah, it's going to be a big test for Arsenal tonight for sure.
Okay, Arsenal will have good memories of this fixture from October. There is a but coming. How different do these sides look?
Yeah, this was the Arsenal team that started that 2-0 win in October, and sort of the big things that sort of come out is Gabriel and Calafiori. They're unlikely to be involved in this game. Well, Gabriel's out for the season and Calafiori didn't train yesterday. But again, we sort of seen this 4-4-2 formation from Arsenal, which saw Trossard basically move from that centre forward in towards that midfield role, and then doubled up with Gabriel Martinelli on the wing. And also, it was a Champions League debut off the bench for Miles Lewis-Skelly, and that just shows his rise, isn't it? That was his Champions League debut. He's probably favourite tonight to start in that left-back role, and very, very deservedly so as well. Now, in terms of PSG, that's an even bigger change for them, because you can see the key players missing at the top end of the pitch. Obviously, they hadn't signed Kavisha Kvaratskhelia yet. He joined in January from Napoli. But also Ousmane Dembélé, who's been one of the top players in Europe this season. He was left out of the squad by Luis Enrique for disciplinary reasons. And Luis Enrique was speaking about that the other day, and he said that was probably one of the best decisions of the season, because it forced Dembélé to focus on his game and then deliver these really excellent numbers as well. Fabian Ruiz was on the bench as well for PSG, so he's probably likely to start over Warren Zaire Emery, and they also had Marco Asensio and Randal Kolo Muani on the bench as well. So they had firepower, but they just didn't get it right at the top end of the pitch. So yeah, it'll be a very, very different PSG side. So Arsenal shouldn't really be using the October game as a real reference for how the semi-final is going to go.
For him, that sort of optimism you've just deflated as well. So a huge game awaits. What chance do we give Arsenal of winning the Champions League?
Well, the Opta Supercomputer is very confident. They have a 31% chance. They say Arsenal are the favourites over PSG. They're probably using that 2-0 win in October as a reference. They're probably also using the fact that Arsenal finished high up in the league phase, and they also beat Real Madrid in the last round. The bookies actually have Barcelona as favourites, with PSG as second favourites, and Arsenal have to settle for third on that one. But Arsenal can come into this semi-final with a lot of confidence. They have beaten Real Madrid in the last round. There are no bigger tests in terms of aura, in terms of mentality, than beating Real Madrid home and away. So Arsenal will go into this game feeling they can beat anyone left in this competition. However, it's just a question of, whether the stage of the Emirates is going to be a great atmosphere tonight, whether that's going to play its part.
So having heard all that, it'll be Inter Milan.
Yeah. Well, what do the numbers know after all?
All right.
OK, for more on this, let's speak live to former Arsenal striker and Sky Sports co-commentator Alan Smith. Very good to see you, Alan. Now, look, this is a huge game tonight for Arsenal in Europe. Is this the biggest game of the Arteta era, do you think?
Yes, I think it is, to be honest with you. The Real Madrid game was the biggest of his tenure, and now this, of course, is even bigger. The lads responded against Real Madrid, and let's hope they can do so again. And, he's pumping up the crowd in the way that he did in the previous round. The Emirates can play a huge part, but, they also need something to shout about. They need their team to step up. And big players relish this sort of occasion. The best players do produce, they do step up. So the Gunners can do that.
Now, some fans might not remember it, but you know what I'm about to say here. I can tell by that smile on your face. 31 years ago, you helped Arsenal to their only major European honour, the Cup Winners' Cup in '94. It was a 1-0 win over Parma. And guess who scored the only goal? Yeah, it was you. Tell us what you remember about it. We'd love to hear some of your memories from that.
I'm sure you don't remember it. It was a wonderful night. We were massive underdogs against Parma, who were the holders of the trophy. And they had some great players. Gianfranco Zola before he went to Chelsea. Asprilla, who went to Newcastle after that. Thomas Brolin, when he was in peak form. They had half of Italy's World Cup squad that went to the States that year for the World Cup. Ian Wright was suspended. John Jensen, our midfielder, had done his cruciate. Martin Keown failed the late fitness test. So we were kind of really up against it. But our defence, our back four stroke back five back there with David Seaman was at its peak, I think. So once I'd scored that goal in the first half, it was about one of the few shots we had all night, to be honest with you. It was quite a spectacular one by my standards, just outside the box. But once I had scored, we rode our luck a bit, or quite a lot, to be honest. But we scored too. So it was a magnificent night. It really was. And who'd have thought then that would be the trophy in Europe Arsenal would have won?
Yeah, I was just about to ask you about that. Did you think at that time that would remain, the club's only major triumph in Europe until, what could be now?
Yeah, amazing, really, for a club of Arsenal stature. They should have more on the table. The following year, we got to the Cup Winners' Cup final again, lost in the last seconds to Real Sociedad. Naeem from the halfway line, all Spurs fans know that saying. Got to the UEFA Cup, wasn't it, against Galatasaray. Got to the Champions League final in, what was it? It was a good few years ago now, against Barcelona, when Jens Lehmann got sent off for a foul on Samuel Eto'o, and obviously against Barcelona with 10 men. Even that fantastic side didn't quite have it. So, yeah, there's been opportunities in finals against Chelsea as well, few years back, and Arsenal just haven't been able to grab them. So listen, not even at the final stage yet. So you cross that bridge when we come to it. But to get past PSG, having got past Real Madrid, that would do wonders for the confidence of the club.
Just what you said there about opportunities. When you look back, it's quite remarkable, isn't it, when you think about the sides over the years under George Graham and Arsene Wenger, that Arsenal haven't done more in Europe. Why do you think they have underperformed?
It's a difficult one, to be honest with you. Come the crunch, I think the latest against Chelsea were a better side on the night, much better. Arsenal didn't really turn up. Galatasaray in the UEFA Cup, that was a drab match, and again Arsenal didn't play well. So just when it's mattered, a little bit of luck went against them against Barcelona. It can happen, it can happen, but you just got to keep plugging away and hope that when you do get to the final next time, you've got all your top players available, and those top players can produce and do the business.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like you did, Alan. Now, look, Arteta
Thank you.
has often spoken about a challenging season. He's talked about red cards, injuries. Do we sometimes overlook just how tough a year that they have had, or do you think that they should have done more to punish Liverpool?
I think during the course of a season, listen, some clubs have had more injuries than others, and you could argue Liverpool, Virgil van Dijk stayed there for nearly all the campaign. They lost Konate for a bit, but not for that long. Mo Salah's been there week in, week out, scoring goals. Arteta hasn't had that, and he suffered the top third of the pitch with Kai Havertz. Jesus came back into the team, scored goals, and then came out again with a bad, serious injury. So it's been in the attacking phase that have lacked. And there have been games you look back on, there's been red cards where they weren't able to get a win, which in the Premier League is never going to be easy against any team with 10 men. And at the end of the season, I think, you get what you deserve, where you should be. Arteta knows that they need a stronger squad to be able to cope with those injuries I mentioned. And, that's the in the summer to be able to cope with whatever you come up against during those 9 hard months.
When we look at the squad, Mikel Merino could be back for this one. Ben White is in training too. Thomas Partey suspended, and Riccardo Calafiori still unfit. How do you think Arteta should approach this one?
Yeah, I think, with those injuries, absences you mentioned, the team kind of picks itself, really. I think Mikel Merino will come back in and maybe play in that midfield area with that licence to get forward. That probably, it's a position he'll feel more comfortable in rather than leading the line. Trossard perhaps can play as that false nine. He scored some goals, some good goals lately, Trossard. So you'd expect Miles Lewis-Skelly to be at left back, Jurrien Timber I would expect to be at right back instead of Ben White, who hasn't had many minutes at all lately. So it pretty much picks itself, and then the bench isn't as strong as you would want, but you've got the likes of Ranieri who could maybe come on at some point. So yeah, it's a strong starting 11 and a very similar one to the one that beaten Real Madrid home and away.
And what about this PSG team, Alan? Because they seem a completely different side to the team that got comfortably beat by Arsenal back in October. But Aston Villa did give them a real scare, didn't they? What are you expecting from this team?
Yeah, the transformation's been amazing, really. I commentated on some games before Christmas when they looked underwhelming, really average. And the way Luis Enrique's turned things around has been spectacular. Obviously, they've got young lads as well, haven't they? Doué flying, maybe coming off the bench. Barcola, Dembele's firing in goals left, right and centre. But I think the experience at the back as well is what is making them a really solid, difficult outfit to beat with Hakimi and Marquinhos. So that, yeah, they're going to be a tough nut to crack. So Arsenal have got to be at the best. But listen, we talk about the pressure on Arsenal. There's pressure on PSG. It's the holy grail, isn't it? It's what they've been speaking about since they had the takeover all those years ago. They've thrown so much money at it, a succession of managers to do it. Thomas Tuchel came closest getting to the final. So, will that have an effect on those PSG players in terms of tightening them up? We just don't know. So it's a mouth-watering prospect over 2 legs.
Yeah, absolutely. You say Arsenal need to be at their best. Do they need a lead in Paris, to take a lead into Paris in order to get through, do you think?
You'd like one, of course you would. You always want to take advantage. Match. And, conventional thinking is that you'd prefer to play the second match away. Doesn't always follow. Second match at home. Doesn't always follow. Didn't against Real Madrid. So even if they come out of it 1-1, you'd think game on, all to play for still. I suppose it's who can stick the ball in the net. You can't always depend on set-piece plays. You can't always depend on Declan Rice sticking one in the top corner or sticking in the same match. So, those lads up front have got to show up, and, the likes of Bukayo Saka, Martinelli's scored some important goals lately. So those boys have got to be at it.
Just how important will discipline be? Because arguably you might say that's not been Arsenal's strongest point.
Yeah, I don't think there'd be a problem with that. There's been some silly sendings off, haven't there? Avoidable ones. On this kind of stage, you've got to keep your discipline. We know UEFA refs do officiate matches slightly differently to what they do in the Premier League. Handballs in the area, they can give a penalty a little bit easier. But the Arsenal lads are used to that now. They know what to expect. And I wouldn't expect there to be a discipline problem in terms of that.
Now, I'm sure Liverpool will be watching this one at home, no doubt still recovering from celebrations at the weekend. But how do you think they set about going again and also defending the title next year?
Well, they look in a good spot, don't they? And I'm sure Arne Slot would love to add to it. You're looking at areas of the pitch, probably a bit like Arsenal. A centre-forward, perhaps, Darwin Núñez, arguably hasn't answered the cause as somebody that can be used and depended upon. You know, they've had some good choices with Gakpo and obviously Diogo Jota and the like. But yeah, I'm sure he'd love to add to the squad. Love to, because I always think when you've won the league, you want to introduce a little bit of freshness to it, because when everybody comes back for the first day of pre-season, there's a couple of new faces perhaps, and that gives everybody a lift, even if those players aren't in your position. They're different faces, something different on the training ground. So Arne Slot, I'm sure, will be looking to do that. But they are a brilliantly run club, it seems, Liverpool, and I'm sure they've got a few fire.
Another one of your former clubs then, Leicester. Jamie Vardy has said, hasn't he, that he wants to continue playing in the Premier League after he leaves the club in the summer. He's now 38. Do you think he still has what it takes to compete in the top level?
You know what? The times I've seen Leicester, he's been the best player. And I know the bar hasn't been set high with the Foxes this year. It's been pretty disastrous. But he's the one that has still stood out. He's the one that's shown that desire, that football nous, if you like. He's been the biggest danger going forward. Now, that does say a lot about the team in general, but I still think he can take part in the Premier League, you know, not starting every week for a club, but certainly somebody you could bring off the bench. And he's still got that little bit of pace, obviously not as quick as he used to be, but he's still got that surge of acceleration. So it'll be an interesting one, that, because I'm sure a few clubs would think, yeah, maybe we could have a little gamble with him, somebody to use as a super sub, if you like.
Now, we're almost done, Alan, but you didn't think that we were going to go without seeing something from 1994, did you? Let's have a little look.
Wonderful.
Some images of you celebrating. Oh, look at him. There he is with that special night in Copenhagen. Look good watching that?
Oh, you've not got the goal, then. You've not got the goal. Just
the celebs for you.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be lovely if we see some celebrations later on in May? Let's hope so. Fingers crossed. It's been too long.
Oh, Alan, it's been great to talk to you. Thanks for your memories as well. We'll speak to you soon.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
So he said it, didn't he? Pivotal night for Arsenal, and being in the last four of the Champions League is not something they're used to. The only other time that Arsenal reached the Champions League final, they beat Spanish side Villarreal in the semi-finals. Colo Touré scoring the only goal of the tie in the first leg as Jens Lehmann saved Juan Roman Riquelme's last-minute penalty, and that sent Arsenal through. Well, their other appearance ended in disappointment in 2009. Cristiano Ronaldo inspired Manchester United to a 4-1 aggregate victory. Arsene Wenger was in charge for both of those previous semi-final ties, but he thinks the current side's defence could be key to reaching the final.
I believe that Arsenal has the potential to do it, but of course once you go to the semi-final, Paris Saint-Germain is a very good team as well, so everybody is excited about it, and let's see and hope.
I think once you get to this stage, no matter who you're facing, it's going to be a challenge, isn't it?
Of course, the teams who go through to the semi-final, they have some qualities, you know, and then it's down to the form of the day, to